Welcome, everybody. We're so excited to be able to talk to you today about crushing your quota with a killer cadence. Now, let's jump right in. My name is Gabe Larson. I am the director of InsideSales.com Labs. I will be offended if you do not add me or continue the conversation on LinkedIn or Twitter. But without further ado, let's talk about crushing your quota with a killer cadence. Gotta love marketing, great title. Here's a couple cadence stats for you. Average number of prospect is called 1.5 times. When it comes to voice messages, a lot of people not even leaving them. 50 to 75% not even leaving a voice message. Email, 70% of unanswered sales emails stop after one attempt. And then last but not least, this is an internal study we did. When it comes to LinkedIn, if you send the same exact email with the same body, intro, subject as you do on LinkedIn email, you've got a 3x response rate on LinkedIn. So quite a bit better the results we're seeing in open rates when it comes to LinkedIn in-mail versus email. So what is the definition of a cadence? Cadence is, according to InsideSales.com, a sequence of plays to optimize contact and qualification. Now, I want to break this down just a little bit because I think there's some real meat in this type of conversation. So a sequence, that is multiple interactions that are tied together. That's not a one and done. This is about educating your prospect with a coherent strategy while being pleasantly persistent. Now, a sequence also implies a system. You've probably seen this. I've seen this. You go to your home tab as a manager, you watching your reps do this in your CRM, and there's hundreds of overdue tasks. That's not a system. It's a mess. You don't and you should not manage your cadence manually. Now, next part, plays. Now, plays are they're part of a strategic game plan. A game plan doesn't just have one play for any of you sports enthusiasts out there. There's always multiple plays that are required to win the game. In cadence, you can't only use one play. You can't just send emails. I had a sales leader tell me the other day that our sales development team was turning into marketers, and we don't want that. You also can't just social sell. I know it's a lot more fun hanging out on social platforms, etc., but a great cadence is going to include more than just social selling. And then lastly, that kind of end part there, contact and qualification. Optimizing contact and qualification are going to be the two outcomes of a cadence. The beauty of this is it allows you to focus on both the quantity and the quality of your interactions. Cadence is not just about contacting. It's about educating that buyer into an opportunity. So I think it's important to nail down that definition. Okay. Next, you've got what makes up a cadence, and the thing that I think is probably most important are going to be these four pillars. Now, there's a couple other things that I think come into a special cadence, if you will, but I want to stick to the foundation or the basics here. What you're seeing here is a communication study that InsideSales.com performed. They went out and asked busy decision makers, business professionals, just what types of communication methods they were using in general. Talked a little bit about some of the stuff we were doing in they were doing in prospecting, what communication methods they were doing there. This particular graph shows when asked, what do business professionals use or are most likely to respond to? What types of communication methods? And you can see email dominates it. Next, you've got mobile phone, landline, so phone in there, voicemail still there. This is an interesting one, and a lot of people wondering, is voicemail dead? I believe it can resolve in a next touch, but I don't think, you got to set the right expectations with voicemail. And then lastly, LinkedIn. Definitely on the list, very high, especially as you really sub-segment this and look at specific prospecting activities. LinkedIn jumping up the chart faster and faster, especially with B2B type prospecting interactions. So these are the core elements that we've opted to build our cadence strategy around. Again, email, phone, voicemail, and social. So when it comes to how we then recommend building, and I want to get tactical, how do you actually build a solid cadence strategy? What you shouldn't do is just sit down and randomly start doing whatever you or your reps want to do. I call that a cowboy town, kind of shooting from the hip. It's best if you get a little bit of a structure in place. I've developed a lot of templates and best practices around this here with colleagues at InsideSales.com, but this is the plan that we typically recommend. And I want to walk you through kind of this 5-step process and give you a little bit of a preview into some of these types of things. So the first is a game plan. A game plan, it's your strategy. It's your overall campaign. It's going to be the theme, if you will, of your sequence. And I think reps often miss this part. They jump, as I said, right into the activities, and that's definitely the wrong way to go about it. Remember, a cadence is a sequence of plays, and those plays need to be connected. Next is going to be that position. This one is an interesting one. You've got to understand your position, and I apologize for all the sports analogies. It's just the way my mind works. There's so many positions in a sales organization and so many names to describe these positions. I used to honestly collect all the different names that people would call different positions. So you had the remote sales rep was an inside sales rep, and a sales development rep was an account development rep. At some point I lost track, so there's too many. But if you can nail down your position and the key attributes of your position, you're going to be extremely effective in building a cadence that matches you and your target market. So for example, one of the things I talk about with position is the different types of reps. So for example, you might be an account executive, but you might be a transactional or high velocity account executive. And that means you're typically going to be dealing with, say, 1 to 3 decision makers, a deal size under 50,000, a sales cycle under 90 days, etc. Now, in contrast, you might be a relational or an account-based account executive. And that means you're going to be dealing with 4+ decision makers. You have a deal size over 50,000 or a sales cycle over 90 days. Now, this absolutely starts to affect the way that you prospect and ultimately builds your cadence. One's going to be a little tighter. One's going to be a little faster. One's going to be a little more strategic. One's going to be a little more aggressive. And so that element of who you are and then therefore the audience that you target is going to really affect that. Now, step 3 then really takes a look at specifically what is your target. Now, think of your target like different buckets or groupings. You may want to target all VPs of sales, all prospects with Salesforce.com as their CRM, or all attendees of a certain event. Now, knowing your target audience can absolutely shift your cadence strategy in one direction or another. Next on the list is the actual sequence. Now, your sequence, this is going to be how you start to bring things into an overall structure for a cadence. Now, we've opted to say that our foundational cadence, and I'm going to just pop over here for a minute, is 3 by 3 by 3 by 3. I hope I didn't lose you in the 3 there. That was 4 threes. What that means for us is placing 3 phone calls, leaving 3 voicemails, sending 3 emails, and performing 3 social interactions. Now, I mentioned we call it the foundational cadence. It's that tried and true cadence that won't lead you astray. It's a lot of people say, okay, why the 6? Why the 3 333, it's about our data. Our research supports the foundational cadence, and I usually, if I have more time, I like to go into this in a little more detail, but 3 phone calls, you know, we've certainly found, and a lot of people shoot up to 6. In fact, that's our original study we did with the Harvard Business Review, but as we continually dive into that data, your biggest bang for your buck's actually more at 3 phone calls over a certain time period. Certainly best practice gets you up into 6, but you got to think about optimal time and optimal time frames. 3 voicemails, did an internal study around voice messages, found that 3 is kind of the magic number there. Emails, interestingly, pretty similar. You know, we found actually up to about 5, and there's some outside studies that validate that, but again, that 2 to 3, right in that 3 range seems to be optimal. And then social touches, some industry data out there mentioning that reps are only using a small amount of social touches, but it's coming on so strong. We've got a 3-step process that we call kind of comment, connect, and call to action. It's how you start building social into your cadence. You can check out my LinkedIn profile. I did a little blog on it with a little infographic. But again, foundational cadence here. However, depending on your role, depending on, you know, your target audience and how assertive or precise you want to be, you might want to deviate from that foundational cadence, but this is a very strong place to start as you think about the different plays you want to start running. So, excuse me. So that's what we call the foundational cadence. Now I'm going to pop back here just a second to the, well, maybe I'll just mention it. That last step on our cadence after the actual sequence was the plays. Now the plays, again, are made up of those 4 steps of phone, voicemail, email, and social, and how you start thinking about some of the best practices around that. So it is, you know, how many phone calls should you do? How many emails should you do? How many voicemails? How many social? And what's the spacing between them? So we start to really get very precise on how to write an email, how to write a voicemail, how to kind of tackle your social touches. And I thought it might be interesting to just do kind of one more click on around the social element of it. So we've got the concept of the foundation, the 3 by 3 by 3 by 3. But how do we kind of tighten this model and specifically on the social side of things? Now, when it comes to getting social into your cadence strategy, we look at this 6-step process and then really focus in on the last 3. So these last 6 this are the 6 C's. They're complete, content, community, connect, comment, and call to action. And maybe I'll just do a little bit of a brief overview on some of these. So the first one is going to be, complete. Now the question is, what should you actually complete? Because there's a lot of different social profiles out there. So LinkedIn is definitely for business. It's my kind of preferred platform of choice. Facebook is for personal and consumers. So many consumer companies use it for business, and truthfully, B2B is getting on there as much. Blogs, Google+, there's a lot of them out there, but I'm going to stick with LinkedIn for a moment. Certainly, once you've identified you got to be on LinkedIn, you can't really build a social cadence strategy until you've overcome some of those rookie mistakes, right? You can't not have a picture and then wonder why nothing's happening. You can't have a picture with so many people in it that you don't even know who you are. So as you look to complete your profile, you've got to define your purpose. If your purpose on LinkedIn is to promote your business, then don't make it look like an online resume that's trying to get a job. So if you're going to start thinking about building a cadence strategy and getting social in there, first thing is you've got to think about getting complete. The next one is content. On the content side of things, it becomes so important to deliver value and relevancy and personalization in a cadence strategy that content, whether you produce it yourself or you have others produce it, it can be a super effective way to start to add value in your cadence strategy. So If you're not producing a lot of content yourself at this point, it's not a big deal. You can provide valuable content to your audience using some of these types of content curation sites. So BuzzSumo is a great one, Buffer App, Reddit, Hootsuite, Feedly. I use Feedly. You can go to BuzzSumo or Feedly. BuzzSumo is a great one. It talks about some of the key articles, posts that are really popular in your industry. You can search by different topics, and then you can look to share some of that relevant content to your audience to just start providing value. The next is getting connected with that kind of the concept of community. You want to make sure you start to get active. You want to start sure you get connected. University alumni groups, work groups, relevant industry groups, trade associations. So if you can start to just get the first 3 C's, that gives you the foundation. Now we go into comment, connect, and call to action. And these are the 3 steps we specifically like to say, let's see if we can embed those into your overall cadence strategy. So let me just take you through those briefly. So prospects have to know you exist. You have to capture your prospects' attention by making yourself visible to them on social channels. Now you do this by providing what we call love, and that is LUV, or leaving unsolicited validation. So here's some of the different ways you can provide love on social channels, right? On LinkedIn, you can connect, you can mention, you can like, you can share, you can comment, recommend, endorse, follow. There's a lot of stuff you can do that provides this little bit of love. Now, the main thing is these comments. A comment is the basic element of interaction on social media. Comments start the engagement, but you've got to be thoughtful in the way that you comment. You can't just do what we call drive-by commenting. How do you get others to comment back to you? You ask a question, you request feedback, you state a strong opinion. If you can start to do this, good comments drive you to a conversation, which is the measure of good love or of good commenting. By making a comment on a post, you can get a reply. By retweeting a tweet, you might get a like or a mention. These are all activities where the prospect reciprocates and that informal two-way conversation begins. And boy, that conversation can be key to engagement. So once you've started to listen and like and provide a little bit of that love, you can move into that next step, which is connect. And connecting is a skill of its own. When I first started as a newbie on LinkedIn, I just thought, heck, I'll just connect to everybody and everywhere, whether they know me or not. I just about got banned because people didn't know me and they didn't connect. I think I was getting reported. But I very soon learned that it's certainly better. Now, you don't always have to play this, but certainly better to connect with an existing concept or with some context, or you just won't get your connection approved. So, yeah, bridge other form of media, whether you've used an email or maybe you met them in person or maybe you found something relevant about them so you can personalize it. When you actually send that connection, then you can say, hey, oh, by the way, hey, we were talking on email, I wanted to connect, or I saw you at this trade show, I wanted to connect. Bring in that relevancy and personalization, and you'll be a lot more effective. And then lastly is that call to action. Boy, as a social seller myself, I just feel like sometimes this is where reps get stuck. They just get nervous. They want to stay in that love phase, and so they have a hard time moving back and getting to that real commitment or call to action. So again, this could be something small. It could be, hey, join a webinar or download a resource, or maybe something a little bigger like an attend event or do a co-presentation, or hey, just meet me in person, or let's set up a phone call. Let's bridge some passive communication into more of that active. But don't stay in that love where you're just kind of going back and forth in the friend zone, if you will. Get out of the friend zone. Move them to a real prospect by giving them a strong call to action. Now, I wanted to kind of walk you through this little infographic I put together just to start thinking about maybe because people have a hard time, I think, getting this in their mind as to how you can actually apply social selling in your cadence. But I want to see if we can kind of get tactical here for just a minute. So Let me just walk you through. I mentioned that foundational cadence and 3 social interactions. So here's maybe how I would go about using social in my cadence. So, okay, first concept is comment. So I find my prospect on social. I start showing them some love, right? LUV. I'm focusing on commenting on a post, liking something they've posted or done, or maybe I just follow them on LinkedIn. That's going to give them a notification. Now, these are all subtle ways to get on the radar of your prospect. Next is, okay, maybe I've not gotten anything back yet. Maybe I have, but I'm going to go ahead and connect. So I go ahead and request to connect, but I'm not going to leave that message blank. I'm going to reference maybe some of the love that I left or use some sample strategies that we talked about, relevancy and personalization. Here's a quick example. So, hey, John, let's think about congratulations. John, I saw you were speaking on the 2020 panel. I'm excited to tune in as I'm passionate about the topic of future of sales. See you on Wednesday, Gabe. So that was some of the love I gave, and now I'm referencing that love and I'm making it a little more personalized. Great. Still haven't heard back, but I have maybe been connected to him. So, okay, now let's move to interaction 3. We're call to action. Now, assuming John accepted that connection request, I can move to that call to action. Now, I may share some valuable content. I may just go ahead and propose a meeting. And from there, I've gotten to a place where, oh my goodness, he's all of a sudden responded to me and said, I wouldn't mind having a conversation. Now, you do these 3 interactions in the midst of some phone calls, some voice messages, and some emails, and all of a sudden you're pulling whatever lever you can to make this as effective as you possibly can. Now, as we bring it to a close here, want to just go through quickly a sample cadence, just to kind of see if we can't bring this all together. So here's a quick one. This would be for a sales development rep. You notice I put game plan at the top. You've got sales development is the position, attributes down there, relational and outbound. Type is going to be assertive. And then I've built a day structure and then went ahead and put in different concepts around those 4 pillars. So you've got 5 phone calls, 3 voice messages, 4 emails, 3 social touches for a total of 15 over about a 14 business day period. Again, this is a sample one. If you'd like, I've got 7 best practice templates for sales development reps that can double your contact rates in about 20 days. You can hit me up on LinkedIn. Also, if you'd like, feel free to tune into our webinar we just did on how to create a winning cadence and improve contact rates. We just dived deeper into this. I've went ahead and thrown the link in there, but appreciate the time. Great topic. Hope you have a fantastic day.